just share my screen and then we can get going. Okay, so that wasn't the right one. I did the old side-by-side thing. Okay, there we go. All right. Let's get going. Where is my pointer? I'm sure I have my pointer here somewhere. There we go. Good. Week 3, week 4. And I mean, it's pretty much, it's term 2. A lot of you have pretty much sort of settled in already. One hopes, sort of settled in, sort of started getting into a bit of a rhythm as well. And I hope that the material and the podcast, the little audio clips, I hope that those are good for you, because what I've done is I've taken each session and I sort of started with a bit of a overview and there's an audio sort of introduction, and then I've added some additional material, and then there's the SACAP stuff, which is the generic SACAP stuff, which is like, here's the links to the readings, here's the learning outcomes, and then I know SACAP also included a little 4-minute video clip as well. I haven't really listened to any of those. I'm not sure whether they are much use to you. And I've made all of them required, so you kind of work through all of them one after the other. And then the quiz, and I hope the quizzes I've not made them too difficult. I've made them fairly easy, just for you to be able to engage with the material first, then do the quiz. And I've tried to make the discussions as interesting as possible, and I've tried to make them more relevant to where you are. I know that quite a few of you are not working adults, but you sort of are studying, and I hope that I've made sort of the case studies and things sort of a bit more relevant to where you are in terms of your working career. So tonight we're going to touch on sort of 3 very interesting functions within organization, which is financial management, marketing, public relations, and we're going to sort of tie it together. I'm going to follow a little storytelling narrative in which we talk through the starting up of a coffee shop, and then sort of talk through each function as they come, as the coffee shop sort of progresses. And then, so I'm going to do that very quickly. I'm going to do this for the first until about 7:30, and then for the rest of the session, really, it's your time. And I'm going to introduce the assessment again. I'm going to specifically talk about the instructions, the wording of the different parts of it, because that's important. Once you understand what a word, like the difference between discuss, analyze, evaluate, identify, list, once you know what the words mean and what is expected from you, you then would be able to look at it and say, okay, if I'm looking at a specific section in the assessment, which is 25%, and one of the section and one of the parts is identify, another part is list, and another part is evaluate, how do I look at that section of 25% of the total weighting of the assessment? How do I look at how much to put for each one? Because I think that's the guideline. It's really, how much do I write for the marks that are there, so that you can understand what is required. So, and overall managing the length and so forth. So back to Porter's value chain. We spoke about this in our very first session. Porter's value chain is this idea that every business is a value additive business, which means essentially that you take raw materials, you take stuff, you take little bits and bobs, and you turn it into a widget that has some value to someone that's willing to pay you for it. And the difference between the total amount of cost, the difference between the cost of all the bits and bobs and pieces that make up the widget, the labor that's added onto it, all of the other cost, and how much somebody is willing to pay for it. So the perceived value of that widget is the margin that the company gets. To give you a very good example, the bits and bobs that goes into an iPhone, the latest iPhone, is roundabout in total with shipping and everything landed in America on average between 100 and 150 US dollars. They sell for 800 to 1,200 US dollars. So you can ask yourself, why is it that they make so much money? It is because of the sheer brand and perceived value that the person is getting. So they say, I'm willing to pay so much more for this product because of the value that I'm getting from it. And the value isn't about just the phone. It isn't just about the use of the phone. It is about the brand image that I get. It's all of those other benefits that I get from using an iPhone. It is absolutely phenomenal. Not everyone has that brand cachet in which you can charge so much more due to the value. So on average, every cell phone costs about, because so many of the cell phone manufacturers in China, the supply chain is so integrated that all the bits and bobs, everything from the motherboard to the screen, to the battery, to the screws, to all of the bits and pieces, all of them are supplied by the same manufacturers. And most suppliers, doesn't matter which phone brand you're looking at, they can manufacture a very good phone, a high-end, top-of-the-line phone for between $100 and $150 because of all the bits and bobs. So that's the idea of the supply chain. That's the idea of the value chain. Every business is a value additive business. It adds value to the raw materials and then sell it on to a person, onto a customer, onto someone that's willing to buy it based on their perceived value that they're getting. And it generally moves in one direction. Part of this, we've got primary activities, which sort of is the transformation of bits and bobs into a widget on the other side. And then you've got secondary activities, which supports this process of transformation, of value adding. And if you're looking at a service business, it's very much the same. A service business, the creation and the sale of the service happens at the same time. So there's no supply chain in a sense where it's moving from one point to another point, but the creation of the service and the converting and adding of value happens at the same time. Like a bank, if you walk into a bank, you don't have to wait for somebody to come and bring something from another place. The person there is the eater of the service or the producer of the service, if that makes sense. So we're going to look tonight at finance, marketing, and PR, which is marketing and PR sort of sits together. And they sort of sit under the same umbrella. And we'll talk sort of about the two of them together. So I want to share with you the story of the Creative Corner Café and how meet Alex. Alex has a dream. Alex has a brilliant idea to open up a cozy cafe near the local college where students hang out, study, drink excellent coffee. An idea is just an idea. And to make it real, Alex needs a plan. So today we're going to go through this process of Alex looking at the different functions. And next week, when we continue with operations, we'll look at operations, how that as a part of this process of adding value throughout the opening of the cozy, there we go, the Creative Corner Café, CCC. So back to the value chain again. So when we look at the value chain for the CCC, the Creative Corner Café, The core job of what Alex needs to do is to make to take coffee beans, which is an input, take milk, which is an input, brew it, which is the transformation process, the operations. So on the one side, you've got the inputs, and then you have the transformation, which is the operations, brew it, and then serve it to happy customers, which is marketing and sales on the other side of it. And as part of that, the value chain that he has some support systems. And part of those support systems is the fuel, which is the finance, the voice, which is marketing, and then the shield, which is public relations. So we'll touch a bit on why I call it the shield. And it's literally what it is. It protects the reputation of the business. And public relations is about protecting the reputation of the business. If your brand carries significant brand cachet, meaning does it have significant value attached to it, then you want to ensure that that is protected. And part of that protection is your public relations strategy. So he has a dream. Alex, he, she can be either, however Alex identifies. The problem is Alex has the perfect location picked out. Now think about location again, and it's part of the assessment. What would make a perfect location for the creative coffee cafe? You know, what would think about where it is, where's the customer in relation to foot traffic and all of those elements in terms of the location. So he has a dream, she has a dream, and they have to sort of find some finance. They have to find some sort of way of being able to fund this dream. And that what brings us to finance, which is the first part of it, which is the fuel element of. So the perfect spot has a much higher rent. Now the question, is it worth it? And now we're talking about the cost benefit principle. So the cost benefit principle deals with this idea that the question is simple. Will the benefit of being in a popular spot, meaning more customers, more sales, be greater than the high cost of rent? And that is the calculation that Alex have to make. And finally, Alex does the math and decide that yes, the location's benefit outweighs the cost. And that is the calculation that every entrepreneur, that every business has to make. Especially when it comes to location, and this is quite an interesting point, especially when it comes to location, is the cost of being close to my customer. So that cost of being close to my customer, does the benefit outweigh the cost of it? And sometimes it's the other way around, in which you choose to be further away from your customer, but then you invest in other forms of being able to get close to your customer, whether it is a delivery service or whether it is a satellite or a pop-up store and so forth. So that's the first part of finance. But let me just pause a bit on finance, because finance is an entire area of study on its own. And there's a couple of key principles of finance which one needs to understand, which is the cost benefit, the risk reward, time value of money, and there's a few other major principles that is, and I don't want it to go down the rabbit hole of throwing a whole lot of financial terms at you, because finance has developed an entire language on its own. But for the purposes of this course, it's about understanding, okay, so when a business operates, they've got all these different bits in, you've got all of these different functions that sort of sits together that have to operate. Think of a business as a clock. All of the pieces are gears that have to mesh together perfectly in order for the clock to keep time. If they don't mesh together perfectly, if they're out by just a micron is a hundredth of a millimeter. A micron, if it's just out by a micron, the clock will lose time, or the clock will seize up entirely. For some businesses, finance is a big year. For some other business, finance is a smaller year. Marketing is a big year. For some other business, it's a smaller year. But all of an entire business is like a mechanical clock. All of the pieces have to work together. And finance is the fuel that drives the business. So you most probably have heard so often that they say cash is king. They talk about cash flow is the lifeblood of the business. And you hear all of these things often bandied about. Cash flow and how cash flows through the business is an important concept to understand as well. So we talk about cost benefit, and then the risk and return principle. So Alex get a loan from the bank, and now Alex needs to repay that loan. Now this is the risk and return principle. So ultimately, when Alex is opening up the cafe, this risk and return, the financial management about finding the right balance between the two. Alex takes a calculated risk, securing a loan, create the best possible cafe experience from day one. So what is the risk? The risk is that Alex won't have sufficient clients, sufficient customers coming into the cafe, and won't have the turnover, meaning sales, in order to make the profit. So sales is on top, profit, and then you take off all of your expenses and all of your costs, and then you're left with a profit. And from that profit, you then have to pay your debt. You have to pay the loan back. You have to draw some sort of monies that you put back into the business and reinvest in order for the business to grow, in this case, for the cafe to grow and get a better sort of experience for its customers. And that's the risk. The risk is if you don't get the clients, meaning you don't get the turnover, you don't get the customers to come in and buy coffee, and also being able to upsell them to buy other things, not just coffee, because in most coffee shops, the coffee is actually the loss leader, which means that the coffee shop don't make a lot of money off the coffee. On every cup of coffee that they're selling it for 35 Rand, for 40 Rand. They'll at most make about 20, they'll make it gross about 20 Rand. So at a net profit, that's after all the expenses, they make about 10 Rand per cup of coffee. Now imagine how many cups of coffee you need to sell every day to make a lot of money. So they don't make money off the coffee, but they make money off the other products that they sell, which is the muffins, which is the cake, which is all of the other things that they sell. And sometimes they also sell coffee beans, raw coffee beans to clients as well, or customers that are looking for it. So it's about calculating that risk. There's a risk that I won't have sufficient customers. Before the bank will give you money, they will want to see the calculations. So they will want to see, do you have a forecast or plan for the next 12 months of how you're going to repay this loan? So I want to see what have you put in place in terms of your marketing, in terms of how many customers you think you're going to get, and then finally how much money you're going to make each month in order to repay the loan. Another sort of important concept of finance is this idea of time value of money. Time value of money works, simply put, that a Rand today is valued more than a Rand tomorrow or next year. Why is that? Due to this thing called inflation. When we have 100 Rand today, it can buy 100 Rands worth of goods and services. Next year, when you buy the exact same goods and services, it's going to cost you more than 100 Rand. Because of inflation, the prices of those goods and services went up. Therefore, 100 Rand today is worth more than 100 Rand in a year's time due to inflation. So what you want to do is, if you invest 100 Rand, or your return on investment, another important finance term, your return on investment. So if Alex takes their sort of 100, sort of that loan today, and they have to pay back the loan at a 5% interest. They have to make more than 5% on every rand that they put into the business. So they put into the business 50,000 rand, which is all the bits, the fits and finishings and stock and getting the business up and running. So they have to pay back that 50,000 rand over the next 5 years. And they have to pay back each month. They have to pay, maybe as an example, 2,000 rand. They have to make sure that they earn more than 5% on each rand in order to offset the interest. So time value of money, it's an important principle in finance in which when establishing a business, you have to consider the investment that you're making and the return on that investment vis-a-vis or versus the interest that you're going to be paying on that loan. Or in the case of investors, they will expect a return on their investment. So they'll say, if I put my money into the bank will give me 4%. But if I put my money into your business, Alex, I expect a return on my investment of 8% or 10%. Why? Because a bank will give my money back. A bank is zero risk. Your coffee shop has a lot more risk. And then risk premium would then be the difference between what the bank would give me, 4%, versus what I'm expecting from your business, which is 10%. So that 6% difference is what we call the risk premium. It's a willingness to take a risk on your business, because in a year's time, the business can close. The coffee shop can close entirely. And me as an investor would lose all of my money. Whereas if I put my money into a bank, I will never lose my money. A bank, I mean, it's literally like a bank. You don't lose your money. Well, except there's some cases where you do. So the cafe's financial plan is simple. Alex now has a budget for everything from the coffee beans to salaries. They have financing from the bank to get started, and they have a plan to manage the cafe's daily cash flow, and that's the cash flow forecast generally. And this is the foundation of financial fuel is in the tank. Now it's time to open up the doors of the cafe. So that's the fuel that drives the business. Opening day. Here we go. Opening day, and now it's about giving the voice to the cafe. The cafe is standing empty. Alex is standing by the door. Nobody knows that the cafe is there. Nobody knows that it's open. And no one knows that it exists. So what does marketing do? Marketing is the voice of the Creative Corner Café, and to give people a reason to visit. So the pure marketing concept. So the philosophy is that Alex doesn't just want to sell coffee. Alex wants to create a community, wants to create sort of a space for students to come, not just to have coffee, but to relax, to chill, to sort of lie about on soft chairs and couches, and sort of sit around and not just have the coffee, but to socialize, a quiet place to study. So there needs to be some areas where you can put on your headphone and study, some good Wi-Fi, and affordable prices, because students are poor. The business needs to make some money, profitability. It needs to make money in order to pay back the loan, in order to survive. Alex also wants some social responsibility. Ethically sourced coffee beans. Again, think about the market. It's young students. They're a lot more aware of things like where the beans are sourced, how labor practices. So there's that whole social responsibility angle that Alex can also integrate into their marketing. And then there's integration. So the whole team, from the baristas to Alex, is focused on creating great student experience. So the question is, what's the difference between marketing and branding? And that was in the video. So I'll swing back to that now shortly. Way back in the 1960s, late 1960s, There was an article that was released. I can't get to his name now, but he wrote the article called "The Marketing Myopia," and he was the first person that it was Theodore. I know it was my name, but I can't get to his surname now. And he wrote The Marketing Myopia, I think it was 1967, and he coined the 4 Ps of marketing for the first time. And since 1967, we've used the 4 Ps of marketing as a framework. The 4 Ps have subsequently grown to like 8 Ps, which includes the planet, which includes sustainability, which include people, which include processes, and all kinds of things. But at its core, it's about the product that you're making, more than just coffee. It's a cozy atmosphere, good Wi-Fi, price, a student-friendly menu with a loyalty card program, a place, the perfect location right near the college campus, and promotion. Instagram posts showing off latte art, flyers, free coffee deal, and so forth, and a big launch party. So the 4 Ps at its core is really about a framework to best understand what is our product. It's not just coffee, but it's the entire product. It's an entire experience. Pricing is not just how much you pay on the board. It's not just the price list. The price is also the perceived value that I'm getting. And then place, it's more than just location. It's about accessibility. It's about all of those other things that make the location perfect. And promotion is not just about Instagram posts, but it's the entire communication, the way you communicate your product to your customers. So what's the difference between branding and marketing? The brand is the vibe. The brand is the feeling around the brand. It is how you feel about the brand. It is about how you interact with the brand. It's how you engage with the brand. Marketing is about come and buy my product. Here is a great deal. Yeah, this is what makes my product great. This is what makes my product better than another product. So marketing is really about come and buy my product. It's not just about that sort of, and it's about pricing and as we said, price, location, and all of those things. The brand is more about how do you feel about and how you connect with the brand. And again, it transcends marketing. It is bigger than marketing. Simple marketing, process in action, listen, create, serve, get feedback, and repeat. Alex talks to students to find out what they want. And based on this feedback, Alex designs the menu, the space and offers, the cafe opens, delivers on its promise. And Alex keeps on listening to what customers are saying online. They monitor it and then repeat that process. I'll share with you a very interesting story about understanding your customer through pinpoint research. A fascinating story. It's a case study of Capitec. Capitec, literally 15 years ago, did not exist. It didn't exist. We had the 4 big banks, which was Nedbank, Standard Bank, ABSA, Nedbank, Standard Bank, ABSA, and FNB, and they dominated. Nobody could open up a bank. They were absolutely kings. Capitec then wanted to launch, and they said, okay, we want to launch to a very specific underserved market. So they said, we want to market to people that don't have a bank account. And that was a great idea. So first of all, they need to find out if you don't have a bank account at the moment, I can't ask you what don't you like about your bank. I need to find out why don't you have a bank account? And what do I need to do in order for you to open up your bank account? So that's what they went about doing and asking. And they started doing research. And some of the important questions that they asked was, why don't you have a bank account? And people would say, I don't like a bank. I wanted to open up a bank account, but when I get to there, then there's this door that swings, and there's a light, and there's a security guard, and it's not very friendly for me. And another person said, I want to open up a bank account, but I can't read. And at the bank, they give you all these forms to sign. I can't write, and I can't even write my name. I'm illiterate. and they're giving me all these forms, which are like 5 pages, and it's all these small letters, and I don't know what it says. So I just never opened up a bank account. And so it went on and on and on. And then Capitec decided to launch, and their strategy was phenomenal. They went to unbanked people that don't have an existing bank account. They opened up all of their branches inside of a mall. That's the most important thing, inside of a mall, because people go to a mall. It's not a standalone bank. People go to a mall. The banks didn't have doors that swing with lights and security guards at it. It was this open door with a person standing there. And as you walk up to that person, the person asks, "What can I do for you?" "I want to open up the bank. I want to open up a bank account." And they say, "Do you have your ID document with you?" "Yes, here it is." They say, "Here, take a number and go and sit anywhere. And when a number gets called, you go and sit at that chair, at that little window, not even a window, at the little cubicle, and that person will help you." Now, people that are unbanked in that end of the market, they understand taking a number, because when you go to a government clinic and when you go to the hospital, when you go to any government department, you take a number and you go and sit in a queue. You're going to sit somewhere and you're going to stand, you're going to sit at another chair, and the number would be called and you go. They were the first bank that did away with paper. So they would record the entire contract and you would just say yes, yes, yes. And then they would use fingerprints as a form of a signature. And you'll get issued with your bank card immediately. You don't have to come back 2 days later for your bank card. No, you get issued with a bank card immediately. And do you know what? They were the first bank that decided that, you know what? It doesn't cost any money for us to print. We can print any color card that we want. So guess what they decided to do? They decided to print all their cards in gold, because they know that at ABSA, at FNB, at Nedbank, at all of these big banks, to get a gold card, you have to be very rich and very well off. So they decided, you know what, we can print black cards, green cards, red cards. We can print a gold card, and they gave everybody a gold card. Now suddenly you had a gold card in your wallet. The second thing that they did, which was phenomenal, was that they made, at launch, they had a relationship with Shoprite, and they said, okay, most of our clients shop at Shoprite. So what will we do? We will connect Shoprite with Capitec. And for the first couple of years, you can go with your Capitec Gold card and go and draw money at the Shoprite till for nothing. You can use your gold card at Shoprite to buy your groceries and everything. Now suddenly you no longer had a ATM because ATMs are quite, if you think of it, if you don't know, they're quite scary, and they're very for somebody that doesn't read, that can't read, for somebody that might be illiterate, it must be a daunting thing to have to walk up to an ATM and put your card in, and then you don't know on the screen, you can't read what's on the screen. But at a Shoprite till, when the person puts your things through, they just ask, "Do you want to draw any money?" And say, "Yes, I want to draw 100 Rand, please." And you put your card in, you put your number in, done. And that's what they did. All through listening to the client, all through, sorry for that little tangent. It's one of those phenomenal sort of customer stories and launches. And now Capitec is huge. So talking about the marketing value chain is about connecting the dots, driving sales, enhancing the service, and improving the overall product. But let's talk about the shield. So one day at Alex's poor coffee shop, a customer experienced a bad experience, slow service, posts a very negative review. The review goes viral. All of the students shared, and now the cafe's reputation is at risk. The solution is, how do you talk to what happened? This is what the public relations, the shield, sort of function is. And this is what Alex decides to do. PR is about managing relationships. It's about listening to what people are saying and responding in a planned, deliberate, and honest way. So Alex needs to manage this relationship with the public, the customers. They also need to relate with their team members or the employees, as well as the media, which is the student newspaper in this case. So this was Alex's plan. They want to win back the trust of the cafe and show that the cafe cares. They've tried to find an unhappy customer and other students and the cafe staff, for those are all the stakeholders. They make a public apology online, acknowledging what happened. They personally reach out to the customer, offer sincere apology and a gift card, which is important. Hold a team meeting to retrain staff on providing faster, friendlier service. And then they go about tracking results in order to monitor whether these improvements have had a positive impact. You were shared as part of the reading was the Toyota story, which was an absolute lesson in what not to do. They were terrible at this. I'm not going to repeat it, but they didn't do very well at it. But they managed to survive it. They lost for 3 years. They lost. Toyota was the biggest selling motor brand in the world, all over the world, specifically in America where this happened. And when this thing happened, through the accelerator pedal, then people passed away and there were some fatalities. There was this constant, it isn't our fault, it isn't our fault, it isn't our fault. And then finally, when they were forced to, by the courts, to acknowledge the mistake, they then started the process of recalls and fixing. But their reputation was damaged for a long while, and it's slowly coming back. Yeah. So very, very quickly, I just want to finish off. So the 3 pillars: finance provides the fuel to build the dream. Marketing gives the coffee the voice to attract its community, and then PR act as a seal to protect the reputation and build and lasting trust. So let me just pause there very quickly and just give everybody or anyone just a quick sort of jumping in. Anybody want to say anything or comment very quickly on the 3 key pillars of Alex's coffee shop? All right. So I hope that you brought some questions along for the first assessment, please. I cannot just in general sort of talk about the assessment if I don't have some guidance from you. So I hope that you brought some questions along specifically to ask me about the assessment. Before we get there, let's talk about understanding the different words and what they mean. So this is what we call in learning design and assessment design. It's part of this whole sort of we call it Bloom's taxonomy, and part of Bloom's taxonomy it's a pyramid, and part of the pyramid is there's different levels of learning. What did I do? Discard. Where am I?
Hit next. You need to go back.
You are absolutely right. I do need to go back. Wait. Where am I? There we go. You don't need French subtitles. I wanted to do some fancy stuff. Okay, there we go. It's called Bloom's taxonomy. It's a little pyramid, and there's different levels of learning, and you sort of graduate through the different levels of learning, different assessments, and it's all to do with different cognitive sort of reasoning skills, cognitive skills. We talk about it, and in first year we sort of operate within the lower level, not because you are younger, but because of the way we assess at this level. And then as you move into, this is why we call it scaffolding. It's like a ladder. You climb up through the ladder. And as you move through first year and second year and third year, you'll find that In general, the content doesn't get so much more complicated, actually. Psych 1 and Psych 3, the level of complexity is not that complicated. It's very much, I mean, in Psych 3, it's very much about psychosis and those type of stuff. And in business management, in third year, it's strategic management, but it requires a different level of cognitive engagement with material, and also we assess at a much more higher level. So we assess in a different way. The percentage of the assessment in third year that is based on your interpretation and your evaluation, and then your creation of your own ideas is a lot more required. Whereas in first year, it is not so much your own ideas, it's your ability to take something, understand it, and then being able to interpret it in your own words. And you'll find that in Identify. So Identify is the first one. Point out the list to specific items, factors, or issues. The list of, or when you look at the size assessment, the location fact, identify the location factors. And you'll start off your sentence with, for a good location for a new business to start off with, you will look at the following things, and you will list them, and you will explain each one of them. List 3 micro-environmental factors affecting the furniture industry as an example. So Identify is very basic. Analyze is a bit more to it. Break it down into parts and explain the relationships or meaning between them. So looking at let's stay with the micro-environmental factors, because that's also, or the environmental factors, because that's also part of your assessment. So we'll say analyze the macro market and micro environment for this business, for this business. So now you have to break it down. The macro environment consists of pestle. The market environment consists of customers, suppliers, or porters, 5 forces, and then the micro environment consists of the vision, internal resources, structure, organizational stuff, and so forth. And then you would look at each one of them, and you would analyze them, or you'll talk through them and explain them. Discuss, explore an issue with examples and balanced viewpoints. So discuss is, this is what it is, and here's an example of it. And that's quite important, because it's about comparing different viewpoints, and normally it will say discuss a concept, and you'll say this is what the concept is, and here's an example of it in a very balanced way. Evaluate is generally between two things. It will say, or if it's one thing, evaluate this concept, judge the value of it. So evaluate essentially says, I agree or I disagree with evidence and reasons. So evaluate is about a value, you add a value to it. So I'll say, assess the pros and cons of various location choices using clear criteria. So we'll give you 2 locations, and it'll say, this one location is not good because of these reasons, and here's the evidence. This one is better, and here's the reasons, and here's the evidence. So evaluate generally is between things, between 2 different concepts, or it can be one concept with a specific set of criteria. Application tends to be your more higher level form of assessment, and this is where you would use a concept or model in order to apply it to a real world or a case-based situation. So it'll say, use the value chain approach, which is a concept or model, to show how a cafe manages its operations. So it'll say the value chain. Within the value chain, you'll talk about the value chain, you'll explain the background of the value chain, and then you'll use it within the context of the cafe for this example. Lerato, you've got your hand up.
Yes, on apply, is that what you're also expecting us to do on the assignment? Do you want us to give example as to how to apply this in real life, or you want us to just be theoretical?
Let me go to, am I still next to it, or is this full screen now? Okay. So this is full screen. So let's have a look, Larata. That's a very good question. So let's have a look. It says where's the apply? Yeah, you won't find it in. It's there's one of them. There's only one. There's only one apply. There's only one apply. So let's look at that apply. Apply a relevant decision-making model. So concept, a decision-making model or technique to the location decision process. So you'll say, okay, so here's the model. Using this model, you'll explain what the model is. You'll give the reference to the model. This is how one would use this model in order to best decide where to locate your business. And then you give an example. So let's have a look at this. Let's have a look at this. This is 20% of the total weighting. It's just on business strategy, business location strategy. And it has 3 questions to it: evaluate, recommend, and then apply a different specific decision model. So you'll have to decide out of that 20, which one of these 3 is going to carry the most weight. Apply would carry the most weight. So that would be about 60% of it. The recommend would literally be based on this. Here's the recommendation. So it would be 2 or 3 sentences. And evaluate would then be your evaluation between the critical factors influencing location decisions for a furniture manufacturing business. So here's the critical factors. Now let me evaluate them. And at the end of that evaluate, I want to see which one of those critical factors for a furniture manufacturing business would be most important. So there's a list of critical factors for a furniture business. Most probably, one of the critical factors would be how close to their suppliers are they? Because they're a manufacturer, they are not a retailer. Manufacturing business closer to your suppliers and your supply chain, your raw materials, whereas a retailer, a person that sells the product, the finished product, you want to be close to your customer in a retail environment. Yes, Lorato?
Okay.
You still have your hand up?
Oh, I didn't take it down.
Okay. Does that make sense for the application, for that particular apply in that particular context? Okay, good.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Awesome. Are there any other questions, guys? Please jump in before I because now that I've given you a bit of direction and I've highlighted the words here because they're important. The first word in every sentence tell you exactly what you need to do once you understand what it means. Once you know the difference between explain, once you know the difference between describe, once you know the difference between analyze, explain, you know exactly what you need to do. Identify, and so forth. And that is, in this case, for this particular assessment, I just want to say that I did not set up this assessment. For what it is, it's a good assessment. I think it's a good assessment. It is very clear. Elmarie, I see your hand. So here's a curveball. Here's a demonstrate. So there's a demonstrate. So what does demonstrate mean? Demonstrate how planning, organizing, and controlling functions would be applied in this particular context. So demonstrate is show me. Planning, so in a case like that, you'll say planning is this, organizing is this, leading is this, controlling is this. Here's a reference. Within a furniture manufacturing context, planning would be, here's an example of what planning would look like. Here's an example of what organizing would look like, leading would look like, controlling would look like. Elmarie, you've got your hand up.
Yes, Theo. I think in the last session you mentioned that we could put in maybe graphs. I'm not there yet, but I just want to preempt thinking about maybe putting something in like a sketch or a diagram or something. When you look at the template that we use, because I'm assuming we're going to use the
Word document template,
yes.
SACAP, yeah.
Yes. What do we then use, or how do we describe the title of a graph or something like that?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, Amri, going through all of the questions, I'm just
Chances are
thinking,
that we won't do something like that. What are you
yeah,
thinking?
there won't really be a need for graph, a table maybe, especially
Yes.
when you're looking at things like evaluate, or things like where. But for the rest of it is very much, I mean, you can maybe include the value chain, a picture of the value chain,
Mm,
possibly.
yeah.
And now this is quite interesting because with AI, you can literally prompt it to give you a value chain of a furniture manufacturer,
Mm,
you know,
yeah.
to make it a bit more relevant instead of searching through Google Images for a value chain, generic value chain thing. For something like that, it would be a good idea to include a bit of a visual.
Mm.
But business management is words, Young. It is words, 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 words. There
Okay.
is, you can't get away from words. It is
Okay.
words, just words and words and words and words.
Okay.
Sometimes little blocks with arrows, and sometimes, yeah, mostly a lot of blocks with arrows, a lot of things that flow from one thing to
Mm,
another thing,
okay.
circles over other circles, and then pyramids. Ah, we love our pyramids. We like making pyramids. Yeah. So, but it's
Thank
it,
you,
it's
Theo.
words. It's words,
Okay.
words, words. So yeah. Sorry.
Thank you.
So, Theo, with what Elmarie has asked, it doesn't mean
Yeah.
if she has died on and I don't, she's gonna get better marks, or how does it work? Do you award
No.
it as a for
No.
effort or
No, Lerato, it's about what's appropriate to answer the question. And if I look at all of these questions, there's very few places where you can add in sort of diagrams or charts, I mean, if you look at, I mean, you can get really fancy and you can look at the location factors and you can draw a little sort of a neighborhood or area, industrial area to indicate where you would locate your furniture manufacturing business and show there's a supplier of wood there and there's a supplier of screws there, etc. But I mean, think about the mark allocation, and this is important. Think about the mark allocation, and think about the cost benefit that we did tonight. It's going to cost you time to do that, and the chance of getting it wrong is high. So that's the risk. So
Theo, I
most,
think,
yeah,
sorry, Theo, I think it's like you said, we need to describe it in words. So we need to say, if it is the example that you used, so if you're manufacturing, then you need to be close to your supplier. So that's the words that you need to use instead of having a graph or a drawing about it.
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's business management, Lerato. It is words. So, and please, guys, please stay within the word, because I have to read all of this. So please stay within the word. I give you 20% grace, so you can go over by 20%, so 2,800. But not above that. I do stop marking after that, and I frown upon your submission. So once again, we've got wonderful AI tools that you can use. And please use it as tools. They are there to be used as tools. Uh, but again, be very mindful, be very careful about how you use it. Make sure that you put your thing through Quillbot, which is a very good one. SciSpace is also a very good one. SciSpace, it's also a very good online tool where you can put your thing through before you submit it to see how much of it is AI, just to be absolutely sure that what you're submitting is you confident in it. Absolutely. Shona. Was it Shauna Smith?
Sorry, it's Shad. Hello,
Oh,
everybody.
Shad.
Yeah.
Okay, hi there.
Yes.
Yes.
I know you've touched base on this last week, but I still want to go back about it, which is the referencing, which is very, very important. With all these evaluate and we evaluating, I think there will be a lot of words that might be our own words. So I just want you to explain a little bit more further on the referencing, because while we are analyzing, it's going to be a little bit of a critique, and there might be a lot of lines that might be our own personal words, which we are trying to put into it. So I know we have to follow the APA7 guidelines, which guides us to be explicitly referencing. So is there anything we should be looking out for here when it comes to referencing, please?
Yes, that's a very good question. So I'll repeat what I said last week. And first year, there is very little that you can say, and I know this might sound harsh. It's not meant to sound like this, but there's very little that you can say in first year that is your own words, if that makes sense. So let me explain that a bit more. So let me use the analyze, or let me use the analyze, because that's a good one. You will talk about so the role of the entrepreneur in establishing a customized furniture manufacturing business. So you'll talk about the role of the entrepreneur, and you'll say the entrepreneur is this and this and this reference. When talking about customized furniture, and you will have to go and do a bit of research on customized furniture in South Africa. If you really want to score well, do a bit of research on the market, because you will have to do a bit of research on the customized furniture manufacturing industry. And I can tell you now, there isn't much. So you have to infer. So you'll say, you'll have to talk about maybe bringing the retail aspect of it and so forth. There's if you should think of your entire submission, I can give you a rule of thumb. And again, it's a rule of thumb. 20% will be your own words, 80% will all be linked to some sort of reference. And in the case of this particular context, which is customized furniture manufacturing, you won't find I don't know who's doing peer-reviewed research in customized furniture manufacturing in South Africa. You will find maybe in the furniture manufacturing industry some peer-reviewed articles, or you might some in the manufacturing industry in South Africa, some peer-reviewed articles. But your customized furniture manufacturing, that will have to be. So let me explain what infer means. So infer means you research on manufacturing, and you maybe get a great article that was published last year on, furniture manufacturing in South Africa and some of the issues that's going on in the industry. And you reference that article quite a lot during your writing. Or it might be regarding the manufacturing industry, and you reference that a lot. So your infer would be, because this is happening in the manufacturing industry, I can make the assumption that it's also happening in the customized furniture manufacturing industry. So that's what I mean by infer. So you use one reference to make an assumption about something else, and that will be your own word. So you can say, based on yada, 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 Van Niekerk 2024, one can assume, or one can infer, that this is also happening in the customized furniture manufacturing industry to this extent. That won't have a reference, but that will be your own words referring to a specific thing. 20% is a rule of thumb, but it will be a lot of connecting things. It will be say, reference, and then a connecting sentence, and then say, another reference, and then another connecting sentence, etc. If that makes a bit of sense. Yeah, Shona? Yeah, go for it. Yeah, Andy's still up?
I'm fine. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, good. Does that answer your question? Because I know in first year you're so worried. You like, am I writing enough? Am I referencing everything? Am I doing this right? I want to get a good mark, and I don't want to fail. And you like, all of these things are all happening at the same time. The one thing that I want to tell all of you, though, please, and I got a note from one of your class colleagues. Please temper your expectations. When I say temper your expectations, I mean don't put too much pressure on yourself and say that, you know what, for term one, because term one, you had fairly, I won't say easy. Okay, let me say easy. You had easy subjects because it was meant to be. Introduction to this, introduction to that, intro this, fundamentals of this, basics of this. And it was meant to be an easy introduction to higher education studies, because higher education studies is such a big jump from high school that it can be very daunting for students to come in at high school, and also very disappointing. So two things happen. One student did very well at school, because some students are very good who work, the ability to memorize lots of things and ability to rewrite those lots of things. They work consistently, they do well with their projects, and they pass matric exceptionally well. They come into higher education, into this space. Suddenly, you don't have the strict, rigid structure of high school. 10% for this, 15% for this, 25% for this. Here's an assignment, here's this, here's the project, here's this, here's the exam. Now suddenly it's like, yeah, there we go. See you in 12 weeks' time. And you're pretty much on your own. And they don't do so well to begin with. So suddenly at school, they used to get high 70s, very good marks, and now suddenly they get their first few assignments back, and now suddenly they're getting like 60s, and they go into a flat panic, and they go, oh, this is not for me, and I don't get it, and my lecturer or my educator is not giving me the right guidance, etc., etc., etc. Those students sort of get it, and they carry on, and they become better and better and better. Then you have another student that was very average at school because they hated school and they just want to get it over and done with. And they were very much a 60% student and they were happy with it. They get into the space and they're like, oh, this is easy. And they start doing still same thing, 60, 65, 70, and they're comfortable with it and they're happy with it. And they're carrying on and they're carrying on and they're carrying on. It's the unfortunate thing is that if you do put pressure on yourself, you stop enjoying this journey. It is such an amazing journey. 3 years for some of you, it's going to be, if you continue with psychology, and for some, they're very few, because you most probably already understand the numbers for psychology. The numbers for psychology is exceptionally low. There are thousands of students that do Psych 1, 2, and 3. There are hundreds of students that do Psych Honors. There are tens of students that do Psych Masters and become clinical psychologists. Very, very few. The funnel is so narrow. The gate is so narrow to walk through. But for some of you, this is what you've chosen to do, and you want to do it. And for some of you, you will get to the other side. And this is a 7-year, 8-year, for some of you, it's a 10-year journey to get into becoming a psychotherapist or clinical psychologist, or along the way, a counselor, a clinical social worker, and so forth. There's a certain type of person that are drawn to the helping professions. And there are 3 types of helping professions. It is doctors and nurses, teachers, and priests, and then therapists. And there's a very specific type of person that are drawn to it, that are wanting to do it. So back to my earlier point, please try not to put too much pressure on yourself. At first year, I am generally a very, very lenient marker. And when I say lenient, I look for the basics. Have you done this? Have you done this? Let's look at the marking rubric, because this is the guideline. Ultimately, this is what I use. So look at the marking guideline. It says the award, the points, between 0 and 5, no evidence. Proficient, the 4 out of 5s, clearly identifies and analyzes, there's those words again, the most relevant environmental variables well suited to furniture manufacturing context. Pestle has 7 external macro environmental analysis. Out of that 7, there's about 3 which are most relevant for furniture manufacturing, which is environment, which is economic, and which is most probably, environmental, economic, not political, not legislation, most probably even those 2, etc. So it's about being able to identify, here's pestle, but out of the 6 pestle, 5 pestle factors, these 2 or these 3 are the most relevant. And use this as a guideline. This is so great as a guideline to tell you exactly, because this is what I'm going to be using. I'm going to be marking and I'm going to go, okay, have you done the basic things? Yes. Now we got the 2. Have you done a bit more? Okay, now we're at the 3. Woo, this guy has really gone the extra, and he's clearly done this. He's made logical connections between environmental factors and business success, etc. That is great. Extra points, not extra points, 4 out of 5. And this is the guideline, because this is what I have to use as the guideline to mark. So use this. And what I would even do, and this is the great thing about AI, what I would even do is I would finish my assessment. I would put it through ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude. I would put in all of these assessment and the grading rubric, and I would say, look at my assessment, look at the grading rubric, and tell me where the gaps are. AI is amazing. It will tell you where the gaps are. It will tell you, for question 1, there's areas that you haven't potentially looked at. So use the tools. They are fantastic. We've already gone a bit over. I'm sorry about it. There was a question. Hello, sir, I was wondering about Judge at a previous student's assignment. You can post for us. This is the first time this assignment was done in this format. We did a similar assignment, Liam, but it was slightly different. So it won't really help. All right. Is anybody else? Anyone? Any questions? Because all of you have been sitting here, even with the time over. I'm sorry. Any final questions before we sign off?